Taehyun stood at the control panel, his four-fingered hands moving quickly over the glowing buttons. His skin had a light purple color, with small scales that caught the blue light from the screens. He was the best sensor expert on the ship, and today something had caught his attention. "Commander Jiwoo," he called out, "I found something strange." Commander Jiwoo floated across the bridge toward him. She moved with the grace that all Linnerites were known for. Her skin shimmered slightly in the dim light of the bridge. "What is it?" she asked, her voice calm but curious. "The scanner shows a large ship piece ahead. It's mostly intact, but that's not what's strange." Taehyun pointed to the energy readings on his screen. "These patterns match human technology." Jiwoo's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "Yes. The computer confirms it. This didn't make sense. Humans were new to space travel. They had only reached nearby stars. They were still learning the basics of spaceflight. Everyone in the Confederation knew this." "How old are these ruins?" Jiwoo asked. Taehyun checked his instruments again. "About 300 years, Commander." "That's impossible," Jiwoo whispered. "Humans barely had space stations 300 years ago." The commander called the whole team together. There were 12 researchers on the small ship, each from a different part of the Confederation. They studied old ruins and lost ships, but they had never found anything like this. "We need to see this up close," said Do-hyun, the young xenoarchaeologist. His excitement was clear in his voice. "If these are really human ships from 300 years ago, it changes everything we know about them." Hours later, a small team floated toward the largest piece of the ruins. They wore special suits that protected them in space. The ship part was huge, at least 500 meters long. It seemed to be the back half of an even larger vessel. "Look at the hull," said Minseo, pointing at the thick metal walls. "This is military grade, built for war." They found an opening and floated inside. Their lights showed a long hallway. The walls were bare metal with pipes and wires showing in some places. Everything was covered in frost from the cold of space. "The airlock still works," said Taehyun. With surprise, he had managed to close the outer door behind them. Some systems might still have power. They moved deeper into the ship. Many rooms were crushed or empty, but as they went further, they found areas that were better preserved. "This was a warship," said Jiwoo, looking at the thick walls and heavy doors. "A big one." In one room, they found what looked like weapons. They were unlike anything the team had seen before. "These are too advanced," said Minseo, studying one of the devices. "The humans we know couldn't build these." Do-hyun moved ahead of the group. He was always the most curious, sometimes too much for his own good. He found a room with many screens and chairs bolted to the floor. "I think this is the control room," he called to the others. The team gathered around him. The room was dark and cold, but mostly intact. Do-hyun brushed dust from a metal plate on the wall. Under the dust were words in human language and a picture of a bird holding arrows and a plant branch. "This says UEC Horizon Dawn," Do-hyun read slowly. "And below it, 7th Expeditionary Fleet." "Humans never had a 7th Fleet," said Jiwoo. "They never had any fleets this advanced." Do-hyun moved to what looked like the main control panel. He was careful not to press anything. "If we could get power to these computers, we might learn more." Taehyun pulled out a small power cell from his pack. "This might work. It's designed to connect to ancient systems." They carefully connected the power cell to the control panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly lights began to flicker on the panel. A soft hum filled the room as systems that had been silent for centuries came back to life. Screens lit up around them, showing strange symbols and diagrams. Then, the main screen in the center of the room glowed brightly. An image appeared, a symbol they didn't recognize. "What is that?" asked Minseo, moving closer. Before anyone could answer, more lights came on throughout the room. The symbol faded, replaced by words in human language scrolling across the screen. "It's activating something," said Taehyun, his voice filled with worry and excitement. Suddenly, a three-dimensional map appeared above the main console. It showed stars and planets, with one area marked in red. "That's here," said Jiwoo, pointing to the red mark. This ship was mapping this region. Do-hyun found something on the floor, a small metal object. He picked it up and wiped away the dust. It was a badge with the same bird symbol they had seen earlier. "Commander," he said quietly, I think the humans weren't just passing through here. I think they were fighting a war. The lights flickered again, and more systems came online. A voice suddenly spoke from the speakers, a human voice speaking words they couldn't understand. But the tone was clear. It was a warning. "We need to report this to the Confederation," said Jiwoo. "This changes everything we know about humans." As they prepared to leave, Do-yun noticed one last thing, a sealed door at the back of the room. Through its small window, he could see shapes inside. He shined his light through the glass. 3 human figures sat in chairs, perfectly preserved in the vacuum of space. They wore complex armor, their faces hidden behind dark visors. They had died at their posts watching the stars. The team left quietly, each lost in their own thoughts. The ruins of the human fleet had just become the most important discovery in Confederation history. 2 weeks passed since the discovery of the human warship. The Galactic Confederation had sent more ships and workers to study the ruins. They built a small space station near the largest piece of the human vessel. The base station buzzed with activity day and night. Minseo sat at her desk, surrounded by screens showing data from the ship's computers. She had been working for days to understand the information they found. As the team's language expert, she had made the most progress translating the human records. "This doesn't make sense," she said to herself. Tae-hyun floated into her office. In the low gravity of the station, people often moved by pushing themselves gently from wall to wall. "Found something?" he asked. Minseo pointed to her main screen. "Look at these ship designs. The humans called this the 7th Expeditionary Fleet." There were 12 fleets total, each with at least 50 large warships. Tae-hyun's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. "That's impossible. Human ships today can barely reach the closest stars. They have maybe 20 ships total, and small ones at that." "I know, but the evidence is right here." She showed him another screen, with maps of space. According to these records, humans controlled over 200 star systems 300 years ago. "What happened to them?" Tae-hyun asked. "I don't know yet, but look at this technology." She pulled up diagrams of engines and weapons. They had faster-than-light travel, more advanced than ours, weapons we're still trying to develop, shields that could withstand direct hits from energy beams. Commander Jiwoo entered the room just in time to hear this last part. Her face showed concern. "The Confederation Council is very interested in your findings," she said. "They're sending their own team to take over." "Take over?" Minseo asked. "But we just started understanding what we found." "Politics," Jiwoo said simply. "Some council members are worried. If humans once had this level of technology, why did they lose it? And could they get it back?" Later that day, Do-hyun sneaked away from the main research area. He had been thinking about the sealed bridge room where they found the human bodies. No one had gone back there since the first visit, but Do-hyun couldn't stop thinking about it. He made his way through the damaged corridors of the human ship. The research team had set up lights and air barriers to make it easier to work inside. Still, most of the ship remained dark and empty. When he reached the bridge, he used his security card to open the door. Inside, everything was exactly as they had left it. The 3 human figures sat frozen at their stations, still wearing their complex armor. The Galactic Confederation survey vessel drifted slowly through the asteroid field. Broken pieces of metal floated everywhere. The ship's lights shone on the debris, showing parts of what once were mighty ships. Do-hyun moved to the main control panel, where they had connected the power cell before. He wanted to see if he could find more information about what happened to the humans. He connected his datapad to the ship's computer and started downloading files. Most were damaged, but some opened. One showed images of a giant space battle. Hundreds of ships firing at each other. The human ships fought against strange, dark vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Another file contained a video. Do-hyun played it on his datapad. A human face appeared, an older male with dark hair and lines on his face. He wore a uniform with many small symbols on the chest. "This is Admiral Park of the United Earth Command," the human said. Final. Report of the 7th Fleet. We engaged the convergence forces at coordinates 227, 43, 89. The enemy numbers were greater than expected. We have lost 60% of our ships, but managed to hold the line. The human paused, looking tired. The prototype weapon worked. We've pushed them back, but at great cost. If you're receiving this message, you must warn Earth. The convergence will return, they always do. The defensive measures must be ready. The video ended there. Do-hyun stared at his screen, trying to understand what he had just seen. Who or what? Was the convergence? And what defensive measures was the human talking about? Suddenly an alarm blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside. Do-hyun quickly disconnected his datapad and hurried toward the exit. He reached the main research area. He found everyone gathering around the communication screens. A large Confederation warship had just arrived. "What's happening?" he asked Minseo. "The Council sent their military," she explained. "They're taking control of the research operation. We've been ordered to share all our findings immediately." On the screen, they could see shuttles leaving the Confederation warship, heading toward their station. Officers in formal military uniforms stood at attention inside the shuttles. "There's something else," Tae-hyun said quietly to Do-hyun and Minseo. The long-range sensors detected energy signals at the edge of this system. "Something is out there watching us." Commander Jiwoo called everyone to attention as the first shuttle docked with their station. "The High Minister himself is here," she said. "This discovery is now the highest priority for the Confederation." As the doors opened and Confederation officials walked in, Do-hyun felt the weight of the datapad in his pocket. He hadn't told anyone about the video he found, about the convergence, about the human admiral's warning. Later that night, when most people were sleeping, Do-hyun sat alone in his small room. He played the video again, watching the human admiral's face as he gave his final report. "The convergence will return," the human had said. Do-hyun looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, an ancient enemy waited, and only he knew about it. The Confederation officials took over the research station quickly. They brought their own experts and equipment. The original team was pushed aside, told to share all their findings and then stay out of the way. Do-hyun watched from a corner as new workers moved through the human ship. They were taking things out, weapons, computer parts, anything that looked useful. It didn't feel right to him. This was history, not just technology to take. "They're stripping it bare," Minseo said, coming to stand beside him. 3 days, and they've taken more than we did in 2 weeks. "Have you been allowed back to the translation work?" Do-hyun asked. Minseo shook her head. "No. They brought their own language specialists, but they're missing things. Important things." "Like what?" She lowered her voice. "The humans were fighting. Something called the convergence. I found references to it in several files before they took my access away. Whatever it was, it scared them enough to build all these warships." Do-hyun thought about the video he had seen, the human admiral's warning. He hadn't told anyone about it yet, not even Minseo. "We need to go back to the bridge," he said suddenly. "Tonight." Later, when most of the station was sleeping, Do-hyun and Minseo made their way to the human ship. They wore researcher uniforms and carried tool bags, looking like they had been sent to do work. The guard at the entrance didn't look twice at them. The Confederation was confident in their control of the site. Inside the ship, they moved quickly through the dark hallways. They had memorized the path to the bridge during previous visits. "The military sealed this section," Minseo whispered when they reached the final corridor. A heavy door blocked their way. "I have this," Do-hyun said, pulling out a small device. "I copied the captain's security code before they restricted our access." The door slid open silently. The bridge looked different now. The Confederation had set up their own equipment around the room. The 3 human bodies were gone, taken for study. "We don't have much time," Do-hyun said, moving to the main console. "Help me find the AI system." "AI system? What are you talking about?" Minseo asked. "I found a reference to an emergency AI in one of the files. If the ship was damaged, the captain's consciousness would be copied to help the survivors." They searched the console, looking for any sign of an activation switch. Minseo found a panel under the captain's chair. "Look at this," she said. "It needs a command code." Do-hyun connected his datapad to the panel. "I think I have it from the files I downloaded." He entered a series of numbers. Nothing happened. "Try." Again. Minseo urged. "The military could check on this area any minute." Do-yun tried another code. Suddenly the lights on the bridge came on. Screens lit up all around them. A humming sound filled the air. In the center of the room a shape began to form. It was made of light blue and flickering. Slowly it took the form of a human. The same man from the video, Admiral Park. "Emergency systems active," the light figure said. "Identifying unknown species detected. Defensive protocols engaging." "No," Do-hyun stepped forward. "We're researchers. We found your ship." The light figure turned to look at him. "Ship status?" "Damaged," Minseo said quickly. "It's been 300 years since your battle." The Admiral's face showed surprise, then understanding. 300 years? Then the containment held. "What containment?" Do-hyun asked. "What is the convergence?" Before the light figure could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside. "They know we're here," Minseo said, fear in her voice. The light figure of Admiral Park moved closer to them. "The convergence is why humanity had to hide, why we erased our own history. They are a species that takes over minds and technology. They wanted Earth. We stopped them, but not forever." "How did you stop them?" Do-hyun asked quickly. "The sundering," the Admiral said. "We destroyed our own technology networks, went back to basics, became invisible to them." Heavy footsteps sounded. In the corridor, the Confederation security was coming. "You must find sanctuary," the Admiral said. "Coordinates in my personal log. The key is remembrance." Do-hyun quickly typed the word into his datapad, connecting it to the ship's system. Files began downloading. The bridge door burst open. "Confederation." Security officers rushed in, weapons ready. "Step away from the console," they shouted. The light figure of Admiral Park looked at the Confederation officers, then back at Do-hyun and Minseo. "They're coming back," he said quietly. "The energy patterns. At the edge of this system, it's them. The first scouts." Then the light figure vanished as the security officers shut down the power to the console. Do-hyun and Minseo were taken away, their datapads confiscated. As they were led back to the station, Do-hyun looked out a window toward the dark space. Beyond the research site, far in the distance, a faint light moved among the stars. It wasn't a natural light. It was moving with purpose, coming closer. In his pocket, hidden from the guards, Do-hyun still had the small memory chip he had removed from his datapad before it was taken. On it were the coordinates the Admiral had called Sanctuary, and whatever was coming from deep space. Do-hyun knew they would need to find Sanctuary soon. Do-hyun and Minseo sat in a small room on the research station. They had been there for hours. The walls were plain metal with no windows. Only one door led in and out, and it was locked from the outside. "What do you think they'll do to us?" Minseo asked quietly. Before Do-hyun could answer, the door slid open. Commander Jiwoo walked in, followed by a tall figure in an elegant uniform covered with symbols of high rank. This was High Minister Junho of the Confederation Council. His 8 eyes blinked in sequence as he studied the two researchers. "You activated something on that ship," Junho said. His voice was deep and calm. "Tell me what you found." Do-hyun looked at Jiwoo, who gave him a small nod. "It was an AI system," Do-hyun explained. "It contained the consciousness of the human fleet, Admiral. He told us about why the human civilization fell." "Go on," Junho said, sitting down across from them. "The humans were fighting something called the Convergence, a species that takes over minds and technology. The humans were winning the war, but at great cost. To protect themselves, they destroyed their own technology networks. They went back to a simpler way of life to hide from the Convergence." Junho was quiet for a moment. "Our long-range sensors have detected unusual energy patterns approaching this system. They match nothing in our records." "The Admiral said they were coming back," Minseo added. "The Convergence. He said the lights at the edge of the system they're scouts." "If this is true," Junho said, "then the entire Confederation could be in danger." He turned to Jiwoo. "Contact Earth. We need to speak with human leaders immediately." 3 days later, a human ship arrived at the research station. It was small and simple compared to the Confederation vessels. 5 humans walked onto the station, looking around with wide eyes at the alien technology. "My name is Hyejin," said the leader of the humans. "I represent Earth's united government. We were told you found something important." Junho led the humans to a large meeting room where images of the ancient human warship floated in the air. Your ancestors were far more advanced than you are now, Junho explained. They controlled hundreds of star systems. They had technology that rivaled or exceeded our own. The humans looked shocked. Hyejin stepped forward to examine the images. More closely, "This doesn't match our history," she said. "We have no records of such technology or any space empire." "Because your ancestors erased it," Dohyun said. He had been invited to the meeting to share what he had learned. "They hid your true history to protect Earth from the convergence." Hyejin frowned. "The convergence, that name appears in some of our oldest stories. We thought they were just myths." Dohyun pulled out the small memory chip he had hidden. "The Admiral's AI gave me coordinates to something called Sanctuary. He said it was humanity's last hope." Junho nodded to one of his assistants, who took the chip and inserted it into a Confederation device. A map appeared in the air above the table. It showed a small star system not far from where they were now. "There's nothing special there in our records," Jiwoo said, checking the Confederation star charts. "Just a small red dwarf star with a few rocky planets." "Then we need to go see for ourselves," Hyejin said. Later that day, as preparations were being made for an expedition to the coordinates, alarms sounded throughout the station. The long-range sensors had detected multiple objects entering the system. On the main screen of the control room, they watched as dark shapes moved toward them. They didn't look like normal ships. They seemed to bend the light around them, making them hard to see clearly. "How many?" Junho asked the sensor operator. "At least 20, High Minister, and they're moving fast." Dohyun remembered the Admiral's words. "They're coming back, the first scouts." "We need to warn everyone," he said, urgently to Junho. "If these are the convergence, they won't stop here." Junho nodded grimly. "Send messages to all Confederation worlds. Unknown hostile forces have entered this system." On another screen, they could see more activities throughout the debris field of the ancient human fleet. Lights were coming on, in ships they thought were dead. Systems were activating on their own. "What's happening?" Minseo asked. "The defense systems," Dohyun realized. "They're responding to the convergence ships." In the center of the control room, a communication panel lit up. A message was coming in. "From Earth." "This is Earth Command," said a new human voice. "We've found something in our oldest archives, references to weapons hidden throughout the galaxy. Weapons designed to fight the convergence." Hyejin stepped forward. "The stories were true then, the guardians who saved us from the Dark Ones." "We need to find Sanctuary," Dohyun said, "before those ships reach us." As if responding to his words, the largest piece of the human fleet began to glow with energy. Systems that had been silent for centuries came to life. On the main screen, they could see the dark ships pausing, as if surprised by the ancient defenses awakening. "We don't have much time," Junho said. "Prepare the fastest ship we have. Dohyun, Minseo, Hyejin, you'll go to these Sanctuary coordinates. Find whatever the humans left there." As they rushed to prepare, Dohyun looked out at the ancient human warship. For 300 years it had waited in the darkness, a silent guardian. Now its purpose was clear again. The war that had never truly ended was about to begin once more. The Confederation ship moved quickly through space. Dohyun stood by the window, watching the stars streak by. They were traveling faster than he had ever gone before, racing to find Sanctuary before the convergent ships could catch them. "We're almost there," Minseo said, joining him at the window. "The navigator says we'll reach the coordinates in 10 minutes. Hyejin, the human leader, walked over to them. In the 3 days since they had left the research station, she had been quiet, thinking about everything they had learned about her ancestors. "Our whole history was changed," she said softly. "For 300 years, we thought we were just beginning our journey to the stars. But we had already been there and come back." "Your ancestors made a brave choice," Dohyun replied. "They gave up their technology to protect your people. The ship's speakers came to life. We have reached the coordinates, entering the system. Now." They hurried to the bridge. On the main screen they could see a small red star with 4 planets circling it. The third planet was small and rocky, covered in ice. "I don't see anything special," the captain said, looking at the scans. "No signs of technology or bases. It has to be here, Do-hyun insisted. The Admiral wouldn't have sent us to an empty system. Min-seo pointed to the screen. Look at the fourth planet, that small moon. Something about its orbit isn't natural. The captain zoomed in on the small moon. It was perfectly round, too perfect for nature. Scan it, Hyejin ordered. The results came back quickly. It's artificial, the captain said in surprise. The entire moon is a constructed shell. They moved the ship closer to the artificial moon. As they approached, a signal began broadcasting on an old frequency. The ship's computer translated it into words. Attention approaching vessel. This is Sanctuary. Identify with human authorization code. Everyone looked at Hyejin. She stepped forward uncertainly. I don't know any code. Do-hyun remembered something. Try remembrance. The Admiral said that was the key. Hyejin spoke clearly. Authorization code. Remembrance. There was a long pause. Then the artificial moon began to change. A large section of its surface slid open, revealing a dark entrance large enough for their ship. Should we go in? The captain asked nervously. We came this far, Hyejin said. We need to see what's inside. Slowly, the ship entered the opening. Lights came on automatically as they moved into a massive hangar. What they saw inside made everyone gasp. Ships. Hundreds of ships. They were lined up in neat rows, gleaming as if they had been built yesterday. They were human ships, similar to the ruins they had found, but in perfect condition. It's a fleet, Min-seo whispered. A whole fleet, just waiting. They landed their ship and stepped out into the hangar. The air was breathable, the temperature comfortable. More lights came on as they walked forward, revealing more of the vast space. A figure of light appeared before them, the same AI of EE. Admiral Park they had seen on the ruined ship. Welcome to Sanctuary, the figure said. It has been 300 years since the last visitors. The convergence has returned, Hyejin said. Just as you warned. They're attacking the place where we found your ruined ship. The Admiral nodded. Then it is time. Follow me. They followed the light figure through long hallways until they reached a large control room. Screens covered the walls, showing different parts of the artificial moon. This is not just a hiding place, the Admiral explained. It is the heart of Operation Guardian. When we realized we couldn't defeat the convergence completely, we created this place. We hid our best ships and weapons here, along with all our knowledge. The Admiral waved his hand and one wall became transparent. Beyond it was another hangar, even larger than the first. Inside stood rows of what looked like battle armor, similar to what the dead humans had worn on the ruined ship, but more advanced. We knew they would return someday, the Admiral continued, so we prepared. The ships can be operated by small crews. The battle suits enhance human abilities. Everything is ready. Hyejin looked overwhelmed. But we don't know how to use any of this. We've lost the knowledge. No, the Admiral said. The knowledge is here too, in databases ready to connect directly to human minds. Your people can learn in days what would take years to study. A loud alarm suddenly sounded. One of the screens showed their home system. The Confederation fleet was engaged in battle with the convergence ships. They were fighting bravely, but being pushed back. We need to help them, Do-hyun said urgently. Yes, the Admiral agreed. The time for hiding is over. Hyejin stepped forward, her face determined. Then teach us. Show us how to use what our ancestors built. It will not be easy, the Admiral warned. The connection process is painful and the battle will be dangerous. We don't have a choice, Hyejin said. We need to finish what our ancestors started. Days later, a message reached the Confederation fleet as they fought a losing battle against the growing number of convergence ships. The message was simple. Hold position. Help is coming. Then from the edge of the system, new ships appeared. They were sleek and powerful, shining with energy. At the front of the fleet was a massive flagship, its weapons already charging. On its bridge stood Hyejin, wearing advanced battle armor. Beside her were humans she had called from Earth, now trained through the ancient knowledge systems. Behind her stood Do-hyun and Min-seo, witnesses to the rebirth of humanity's legacy. All ships, Hyejin commanded, her voice carrying to the entire fleet. Prepare to engage. The Guardians have returned. The fleet moved forward, weapons ready. The battle for the future had begun.